Hello, chat. Uh, Yet another wonderful day here in cold Ohio. Um, there's a car that's parked on the side of the fucking. That's not good. Oh, I see. It looks like there might have been a car accident. Okay. Well, it's unfortunate. Drive safe, chat. Drive safe. If you're listening to this on your commute home, two hands on the wheel, okay? Seatbelts on. Be a good driver. Welcome back, y'all. Sorry I didn't put another one out there this weekend. I was at my parents' place in San Francisco, but boy, I just took a nap Saturday, which is when I thought I was gonna do something, walk around a little. Literally just slept. Very seldom did I get out of bed. Got out to go say hi to a friend in the evening, but that was only like a couple hours and then went back to bed. So has been a very rejuvenating past week, but for a few different reasons. One, this weekend has been very good for sleep and also visiting my family. Also, this past week we had a mini camp for prospects, invited prospects over in Arizona. So I was in Arizona. The last pod was me in Arizona, so you could probably hear or see a little more about that there. And now back here. This is, for those who are keeping up to date with day-to-day on these pods, I don't even know if anyone cares about that, honestly, but this week is our fan fest for the team. So every team, at least almost all teams, I think all teams have like before the season begins, there's like a fan fest. Or like, you buy tickets, you go and hear like players talk and you get autographs and pictures and hear kind of like the state of the team. Just get like pumped up for the season, And ours is this week. Ours is very big, so a lot of teams, they'll do like a one-day thing, have players talk, some coaches talk, and that's it, And I think you'll have like a variety of different ways people do that. Ours is 2 days, and there's like a celebrity poker tournament where you're playing with the players, and there's like all sorts of stuff that goes on. Wiffle ball with the players, different like variety show kind of things that happen. Like it truly is like the players in a different element. So that will be happening this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday, Saturday, maybe. Sorry for people doing Reds Fest comms. I know it's Friday, Saturday. Yes, Friday, Saturday. No Sunday. Just Friday and Saturday. Anyway. That's all going on right now. So it'll be exciting to see some of the players that I didn't get to see. There are a handful of players. A good amount of the players were at this camp already this past week. And now there'll be a lot more major leaguers we haven't seen. So it'll be good to see all of our major leaguers who I didn't get to see yet. And touch base with a lot of our assistant coaches who weren't at this past camp. So it's exciting. I'm pumped. I'm excited for baseball. So it's probably like the first question that someone has for me. There's a bunch of baseball questions, and trying to be a little strategic since I know I'm going to be doing these monthly bigger ones, and I reckon people kind of want to hear like the bigger, meatier, baseball-y questions on those ones sometimes. So trying to save some baseball questions for the monthlies, but today we got a good one on stadiums, arenas, parks, bucket list. This is full disclosure. I go to many games and I see many more parks than most people will. Honestly, if you go to one baseball game, one sporting event even, you're probably already in like a minority, right? Not a lot of people go to sporting events in person. And that's not because sporting events in person are bad or anything or inaccessible or anything. Like, you can get a baseball ticket to a Reds game for like $10, you know? But I think it is like the effort to do it, you know? Go to a baseball game, pay for parking. It's like you're making a day of it, kinda. It's kind of like going to a concert, right? It's like some people, they just don't go to a lot of concerts. Mainly because, you know, music, they'd rather just listen to it rather than see the performer play it, right? So sometimes sports is a little more passive. So I start this by saying, I've been to a lot of parks, right? A lot of baseball fields. And they're all very cool. They're all very unique. And when I think about like what athletic arenas I think would be cool to just see, like hollowed ground, you know? Like, I remember I was at I think two or three years ago, I got to see Arsenal play at home, and that was awesome. Like, obviously I don't have a rooting interest in Arsenal. I don't really have a rooting interest in any particular EPL team, but, you know, being in like that stadium, it's old. Like, there aren't like these gigantic screens. Like, you got two tiny, small screens, and like, that's for replay, like, service only, really. But it's all eyes on the field, and it is loud and very cool. It is very cool. So that was awesome, and kind of got me thinking, like, what would be an experience like that I would love to be just in, more so than, you know, the stadium. And I thought, like, you know, any Olympic village or stadium for basketball, I think would be fucking sick. I think Olympic or international style sports, particularly Olympics, you know, just all the hubbub, right? Like, I think basketball would be awesome. If baseball ever gets back in there, obviously that would be awesome too, but usually for baseball, they aren't making new parks or stadiums for baseball. Sometimes they might, but most of the time they won't. And basketball usually gets played in like its own arena, but like a lot of the time when they build like a Olympic stadium or a park, they're usually doing like all the track and field events there. Sometimes they do like soccer there or whatever, right? Because it's a multi-purpose facility at the end of the day. So I think Olympic would be cool. I was able to go to, it wasn't during the Olympics, but I remember we, as a family, went up to Beijing for Christmas once. That was really crazy. It was pretty cool. But part of the tour that we were on, we went up and got to see the bird's nest, Beijing's Olympic Stadium for the 2016 Olympics? I don't remember, but it was gigantic, and it was crazy. It was like, you know, metal, twisted metal. Shout out to the video game. It was crazy. It's gigantic too. You could see it from miles away. So maybe going to like and Olympics would probably be like on my list. Probably on my list. But in terms of just like regular, like your, you know, sporting events, typical parks, I'd love to see like Barcelona in Barcelona. That would be great. PSG in Paris would be awesome. You know, Bayern Munich in Munich would be awesome. I love Munich as well. I don't know, being able to see like a Japanese, well, okay. One event, I actually don't know where they finish it, but the is it the Koshin? The Koshin? The Japanese high school baseball tournament. I don't know if they finished the last games in Tokyo Dome, but I would imagine that would be an awesome experience. Just being able to do Tokyo Dome, but with like a really unique, cool tournament. That'd be awesome. Similarly, like being able to see like an NPB playoff game, champion game, and Tokyo Dome would be sick. Maybe even All-Star game, that would be sick. NPB All-Star game in Tokyo Dome. Pretty sweet. Honestly, one thing I haven't done, which might just be like a shame on me after living in Cincinnati for so long, I haven't done Kentucky Derby. So being able to do Kentucky Derby down in Louisville, that'd be pretty sweet. You know, those Triple Crown hallowed grounds, you know? That's about, you know, off the top of it. Now, there are some other nerdier ones, right? Like, I'd love to see like a esports tournament, have a finals in Philly at that Wells Fargo, or was it Xfinity Esports Arena next to where the Flyers play? I think it's like over there. That would be sick. I'd love that. If there was like a TFT Open where, you know, one of the Tacticians Cups or one of the Opens ends up being like one of these gigantic arenas, esports arenas, that'd be cool. Like there, esports facility, the one that Dallas Fuel played out of, that'd be sick. I mean, this is me being a nerd though, you know? This is some nerd shit. So, yeah. All right, next. Someone asked about Claude. I think this is actually, no, don't want to call anyone out here, but I've done a couple pods on use case of AI, or so-called AI, at the workplace, and my answer is mostly the same every time, but this one's a little more nuanced, mainly because the question was around coding. Like, what is the view of using Claude or VS Code with some built-in integration, or, you know, Copilot or whatever? What's the viewpoint on using any of that as in your workflow? So not the generic like, oh, do you use it to like make new things? Well, elaborate, right? So this being a little more nuanced, like, are you using this to help you at least code? And my thought is, well, first, I won't necessarily say what we have or don't have in terms of support there, but as the lead of the department, as the head of it, I'm all in favor. I think my thought on so-called AI is is definitely bearish on the idea that it is in any form able to replace full-scale, wholesale roles, right? And now some, sure, like customer service, where you have lots of transcripts, lots of similar or same options, being able to navigate someone to the right, decision tree of choices. I think that is very possible, plausible, and implemented already in many places. If you've ever called your bank, if you ever called an airline, if you ever called your ISP, anytime recently, within the last 2 years, you will find it very difficult to talk to a human being. And it is kind of a plus that, at least in my experiences, I've been able to actually click through the decision tree and actually get my stuff solved, whether that is so-called AI or just better programmatic, probabilistic choices, and then you're replacing more customer service agents, help desk agents, then so be it, right? I think that is a spot where there is a formula and you're applying the formula, and while that is costing jobs, it is ideally creating hopefully different opportunities for people who are in those roles, at least in the ideal. More realistically, it is removing those roles and shrinking the footprint of an organization. But I digress. In terms of wholesale replacement, I don't think any so-called AI is ready for that, right? But in terms of assist, I think it'd be silly not to be implementing more coding assistant stuff into your workflow, right? This is because it's taking out a lot of your Stack Overflow Googling time, right? Like, when you would get stuck, say you're working, this happens to me, this happens to everyone, especially in the world of data visualization, if you don't do it all the time. You're trying to put a picture, say it's like a headshot or a team logo or a logo of any sort, onto something, right? Onto an image. Well, there are some packages that allow you to do that, but there aren't necessarily easy ways to access that, especially if you're not cognizant or aware of the packages that exist for those kinds of data visualizations, right? So more than likely, you're going to be Googling and Stack Overflowing, looking for the right package, then working through the framework of that package, why are things going wrong, etc. One simple example of this would be in Python. In R, there's a package where it's called repel. So if you have text in a graph, it gives space between the text and the markers. That way you could clearly see the text, and then it has an arrow pointing to the data point, right? Just having nice clean labels and saying what particular points are in a graph. And before repel, you would either have to do this in Illustrator, or you would do this post hoc or ad hoc in PowerPoint or Photoshop or something, right? So it's you're able to do it programmatically in the data visualization package you're using, ggRepel. So Python has a version of this called adjust text, which it is what it sounds like. You put in labels, you put in text, and it moves the text so it isn't, cluttering or being laid over the top of data points. That way you could clearly see the text, and arrows are pointing to the data points, the markers that are accurate and appropriate for the text. However, adjust text is while simple, I know how to use it, at least in its most basic forms. It has it's a little finicky to get going. So even though it shouldn't be, it's just X, Y, and the text you're inserting in list form, which doesn't get more Pythonic than that. But when you're working in the realm of matplotlib or matplotlib, depending on how you pronounce it, you're working in MPL for data visualization. It does get, it's hard to see if you're doing it right because you need to plot something. And if you're plotting an entire data set, maybe the plot takes a while to render. So how do you ultimately like double check that the stuff's working? Even if you subset down, you're not working with your entire data set. So how do you know you're avoiding all the text? Sometimes when you put in all your data and the text, it's like way too much, or it's way too repelled, right? There's too much space between the text and the markers. So it gets a little finicky. It's a little difficult to work with. But all of that, when I learned this package, existed before the world of GPT, the world before code assist, like GPT or Claude or Gemini or any of these things, right? So fast forward to today, when I'm doing data visualization and I need a little more precision in adjust text. I've done this recently. Rather than Stack Overflowing and asking questions, Claude actually, or not Claude, but ChatGPT in this case, actually points me in the right direction. So I could just like copy and paste code in, tells me about what's going on, how to fix it. And then I have a lot of different examples to choose from, which is really helpful. So that's kind of the assist I'm thinking of, is when you're coding through something, you have stuff that works, you want to be more precise, or you want to just work through a new package that's being incorporated into your current code, your current stack or snippets, and you want to know where to start. I think it's a good place. That's like the most extreme versions where I would use LLMs to help me code. So I'm all for it. It's fast, but there are some downsides, right? Like there's this like somewhat viral image right now going around of like questions asked at Stack Overflow since like 2000 or something. And it's quite literally an upside down U. Looks almost like a perfect bell shape, where at the max you were getting like, you know, hundreds of thousands of questions a day. And now you're getting, at best, thousands. So there are magnitude differences of people asking questions into Stack Overflow, which means there are magnitude less answers going into Stack Overflow, which means in terms of updating the updating what is new, or new and novel things that should exist in these large language models, you're going to be struggling to find new source material because people are just asking so-called AI all of these questions instead of places that exist on the internet where experts or even the developers are able to answer these things, right? So you do present an issue. The accessibility to answer these things in large language model form is better implemented now more than ever, and it continues to improve in terms of experience. However, the material that it was citing or being trained on originally, you now have a drought of new content. So all of the information, or at least the vast majority of it, exists in the training sets that we have already, and more nuanced or specific questions are going to be very difficult to get accurate answers from so-called AI as we continue this reliance or supplementing using large language models instead of good old Google and asking in forums such as Stack Overflow. So long story short, I am all for it, but what this means for the future of how we ask questions and get feedback, I think we're just going to ultimately have to be better programmers at the end of the day, right? Like, you can't just be, like, we're getting a lot of first movers now who are adopting this, who are okay at programming, and now they're being good or great programmers. But when that becomes the standard, you're going to have people who want to be developing at the speed of people who have been using large language models, which is faster at times. Although research would suggest that sometimes it is actually slower, depending on the projects. So the perceived quickness of delivering projects, and because there's going to be less original content source material, you're going to have to rely on better first principles programmers. So people who can diagnose issues that are very nuanced, whereas in previous eras, nuanced packages and these kinds of questions would have been readily available in Stack Overflow or different GitHub issues or wherever, right? Google forums. You would have had at least one or two questions asked about some similar or same problems, and now you might have none, right? So the reliance on more niche or rare problems is the reliance on skills to answer these niche problems. It's going to be higher than ever, in my opinion. Now, I hope that's wrong. I hope there is a better balance of questions and answers, and the integration of so-called AI into all of it. But right now, it seems like the invasion of LLMs as the place to ask questions, even though they may be nuanced, they may be specific. I think we're going to see at some point in time a need of better programming skills to supplement the cynically the reliance, or pessimistically, I think, the reliance of so-called large or so-called AI in our coding environment. So where we created a tool to make it easier to program, the byproduct of this in the long term is we need better programmers. So at least that's one hypothesis. Okay, last question I got. This is also a sportsy question. I've talked about this before. Someone asked about best playoffs. Like, what sport has the best playoffs? Now, I went to a conference once, and they had 4 GMs, and someone at the time it was Oliver Luck, Andrew Luck's dad, I think, but he was overseeing NCAA football committee at the time. I think it was like him and Condoleezza Rice and people who were part of the initial college football playoff system. So it was him and 4 GMs from 4 different sports. There was a baseball GM, there was a basketball GM, a football GM, and a hockey GM. And The question was this: it was, what should playoffs represent? And everyone had similar but different answers. Someone said playoffs should award that season's best team. Someone said playoffs should award a team that can withstand all of the demands of the regular season at its highest level. Someone said it should award the best team. Someone said it should award a team that has to go above and beyond the expectations of any other franchise. So there are many ways to interpret this. This is all saying the same thing in concept. You're trying to say one team is better than all the other teams, but it's a little different for all of them, right? Like some said it's contingent on health. Some said it's contingent on, money or the players or the environment or more unquantifiable things, the staff, the culture that you've produced. You want to award a team not just the players, but the people who support the team. You want to award a team and the players are a reflection of the front office and the staff and everything. Like, there were so many different points of view on it. And it got down to the question of like, all right, well, given all the opinions, like what reflects this the best? And some said the UEFA Champions League, the way that in European soccer, they have all of the professional teams in the top leagues. They all qualify into the UEFA Champions League, and they all play against each other. So it's like the best teams from the best leagues all playing against each other. So this is like, for those who calculate things like league, like level league equivalency, like is Bundesliga, this how many, what's the equivalent average player in the Bundesliga versus La Liga, right? What's the equivalent La Liga player to MLS or to EPL? This is like a great, well, maybe not a great, not a perfect, but a good example of like, if you take all the top teams, best on best, what is the translation of, Arsenal versus PSG versus Barcelona or Real Madrid or Bayern Munich or Juventus or, any of these teams, right? So someone said that the UEFA Champions League is what they think playoffs should be about. So in order to get in, you have to be the best in your respective league, and you compete against the best of other leagues. And at the end of the day, it's best on best. And the closest thing we have to that is kind of like the way our divisions and conferences are set up in North American sports. So like in baseball, you have the American League and the National League. And then within each league, you have different divisions. You have National League West and Central and East, right? Same thing with American League. And so the best within a particular division goes to the playoffs. And then the divisions, the best teams in each division play each other. And then one team represents the conference at the end of it. And then you have two teams, one from the AL, one from the NL, playing each other in the World Series, right? So in some way, this is sort of like the UEFA concept, just smaller scale, and the disparity of quality between teams is much larger, right? Whereas if you're choosing the best 4 teams or the best 2 teams out of the top pro leagues, you're probably a lot closer in competition average, like average ability across each player, than, the in Major League Baseball, the variance from the best team in the playoffs to the worst team in the playoffs could be extremely large, right? So while that format makes sense, it's good to strive for, how often do we actually get there? One GM at this conference, at this panel, said UEFA does it the best. Now, this was countered with the idea of March Madness being someone's favorite, one of these people on the panel, that was their favorite format because it's one and done, right? Single elimination, gigantic bracket, everyone has a chance. But time over time, the best teams tend to go deep. And while the best teams don't always win it, they do consistently get far in the tournament. So the variance, the difference in competition from the number 1 seed from the number 16th seed is large enough to be statistically significant year over year, right? And you can see all the odds on March Madness brackets, bracketology as they call it. So someone said that was the best in their mind because it mimics the format of the regular season. So you only see these teams one time. Sometimes you see them 2 times. At best, you see them 3, maybe 4 times. If you play, a team regularly in your conference, they go play you in the playoffs. There's some like double elimination bracket style. You play them twice. You play them twice in the playoffs. And that's it, right? So you might play a team 4 times, maybe 5 times if you match up with them in March Madness as well. But it mimics, at least March Madness mimics the regular season of NCAA men's basketball and women's basketball. It mimics that as close as you could get, and it awards a team who can outlast all the other teams. So this gets you thinking, like, all right, well, if the playoff format is, so different from the regular season format, shouldn't the regular season format change as well? Or should we continue to, have the regular season and the playoff seasons be separate, and separate formats? And my personal thought on all of this is you have the axis of, quality of competition awarding the best competition. Let's say that's like the x-axis. But then you have the competition of y, which is what's the most fun, right? March Madness is extremely fun, but how often is it actually awarding quality of competition? Are the best teams getting far enough into the playoffs? Is it acceptable that the number 1 seed doesn't always win, or very rarely wins, in fact, NCAA basketball tournaments? Is it fair that they should strive to be one of the final 4 teams, but if they win a championship, it's like a cherry on top? Shouldn't they be playing for the championship, right? Not being one of the top 4 teams. You want to be one of one, right? So what are you really trying to award? Which is where you go to Premier League, English Premier League, and they don't have an official tournament postseason that, says this team is the best. They just say whoever's at the top of the table is the best team, right? Which is exciting to watch at the end of the season when you're table watching, but it isn't a playoff. Whereas, in NFL, it's single elimination and so dependent on health. It's fun to watch, but are we really saying some of these teams are better than other teams, right? Like, are we really, right now, San Francisco played Philadelphia yesterday, and San Francisco beat Philadelphia. Are we saying San Francisco's better than than the Eagles this year? I think you'd be hard pressed to say that. I think the Eagles were one of the best teams in the league this regular season, but in the postseason, they're not even in it anymore. So what is a playoff trying to accomplish? And I think for me, as a viewer, as a spectator, I want to see the best teams play each other as many times as possible. And whatever that threshold is of as many times as possible, when fatigue starts to play a role, when quality of competition begins to wane, I'd like that to be the cutoff. So if I'm thinking about, like, say, chess, right? They play like dozens of games in a tournament format. Sometimes, they don't play that many games, but sometimes they play dozens of games against one opponent. And at the end of it, it's a pretty clear, this player was better, prepared better, had better lines than this other player. Therefore, this player is better, right? But you can't think of, like, in the NBA, you wouldn't think of a championship, the NBA Finals being 12 games. That'd be insane, right? You couldn't think of the World Series being 21 games. And there was a good article by Mike Lopez on his blog, Stats by Lopez, about how many times you need to play for it to be equivalent to, like, judging the true talent of a team, or close to the true talent of a team. And you have to play like hundreds of games for some leagues. And I think baseball is like, you have to play like a best of like 97, which is like obviously more than just about over 2/3 of the regular season, right? So what are you really trying to award, right? Like, if you really want it to be fair and you're trying to award the best team objectively, I think you're going to be hard pressed to do that. And I think if you lean too far into the fun aspect, then the best team kind of gets the team that wins a particular tournament tends to be a little more watered down, right? Like NCAA basketball tournaments, if some team just makes a run all the way to the top of it, great for that team. But are you really saying random team from who was like a 10th or 12th or 14th seed who makes it to the finals is better than, Indiana, Purdue, better than all these, Gonzaga? Like, are you really saying that this team is better than all these other teams? It probably doesn't actually line up that way if you went into series format. So for me, I'm always more interested in who's the best. And really, like, the entertainment side of it is, if we're finding out a player is just not as good, or a team is not as good as others, then you'll see that as soon as possible, right? Like, you'll just know, like, this team's just outmatched. This player's just outmatched. But if it's close, which it hopefully should be, and hopefully, like, the playoffs should be really undecided. And if two teams at the top are really, truly mirror images of each other in some ways, like Toronto versus the Dodgers this year, not only did they go to Game 7, but they played extra innings several times, including a game that was 18 innings. So they technically played more innings this World Series than other World Series. Like, in these 4-game sweep series that had only like 36 innings. 3 games had that in this Dodgers-Toronto game, if you include that 18-inning game. It's that those were 2 teams where at the end of the season they were kind of mirror matchups. And the thing that decides it at the end of it is small plays, which is the difference between winning a championship and not this year. So I would want to see that every time. I wish that is the championship. I wish that's what a championship, or at least what a playoffs should be like every game. It should be really close. It should be so close that you really still don't know. And hopefully over the course of many seasons, if these teams are together for longer, you'll find out over the course of time, right? But yeah, I think competition is fun for me versus randomness. And so best on best for as many as possible, I think that's the best format. And I think NBA provides that. I think NBA's championship format provides that. I think, yeah. So, okay, this is a long one. Gosh, I thought this was going to be so short. I got to this question at 28 minutes, and I was like, this is going to be done in 5 minutes. Here I am, 47 minutes in. For those who are watching this, and you made it this far, that's wonderful. I really do truly appreciate it. All right, y'all. Long one, but this is good. I'll catch y'all on the next one.